Bismillah. When you start something, say Bismillah.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Muhammad Kara and I will be your host for today's program. Our community reached another important milestone recently in the form of an inspiring Quran exhibition to be found in the Mulla Asger Resort Center in Toronto, Canada. Before we begin the program, let's go over some parts of the media statement released from the MARC team. April 24, 2011 marked the inauguration of a comprehensive exhibition on the Quran with a wonderful array of the sights and sounds at the Mulla Asger Memorial Library and Resort Center at the Joffrey Community Center in Toronto, Canada. Visitors from different faiths and nationalities were able to feast their eyes upon rare manuscripts and digital displays of Quranic brilliance, dating back to the 8th century and obtained from both individual collectors and communities from across the Islamic world. On display are all sorts of modern gadgets for learning, reading, reciting, and listening to the Quran, and appropriately placed on the imposing central wall is a display titled Ahlul Bayt in the Quran, depicting verses on the Ahlul Bayt, including posters and digital displays of Quranic fragments illustrating the word of Allah in the handwriting of the A'imma. This 6-month-long exposition, aptly titled Words of Allah, Expressions of Man, from Parchment to iPad, expounds upon the history of the noble Quran, following its journey from revelation through to its compilation and preservation to this date via a unique diversity of means, ranging from historical notes, timelines, diagrams, and maps. Over the next 6 months, many more displays and artifacts will be added to make this a unique repository of the beauty of the Quran in North America. So now that the stage is set, let's begin by hearing a few words from the MC of the program, Brother Riaz Datu.
I greet you with the Islamic greeting, meaning peace be upon you. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. My name is Riaz Datu, and it is an honor to welcome you to this evening's ceremony of what is considered a historic milestone for not just this community, but a milestone that will be marked in the timeline of Khoja development. This being the completion of the awaited Mulla Asger Memorial Library and Islamic Resource Center. And what better way to mark this occasion than to launch an exhibition on the basis of what drives us, what acts as a unified source for all Muslims, that being nothing else than the words of God, the words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, nothing but the Holy Quran.
In order to appropriately inaugurate such an exhibition on the Quran, it makes sense that it be done by none other than the Quran itself. To this end, an artist specifically created a graphic of Iqra, the very first word revealed in the Quran, to be displayed on the center wall, and the ceremony began by presenting a copy of the Quran to Brother Bashir Bhai Hirji, representing the donor family, who in turn presented it to the Qari, Brother Mazahir Somji, who recited the very first verses revealed to our blessed Holy Prophet Muhammad.
Bar Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad salawat.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم اقرأ باسم ربك الذي خلق خلق الإنسان من علق اقرأ وربك الأكرم الذي علم بالقلم علم الإنسان ما لم يعلم اقرأ باسم ربك الذي خلق خلق الإنسان من علق اقرأ وربك الأكرم الذي علم بالقلم علم الإنسان ما لم يعلم كلا إن الإنسان ليطغى أن رآه استغنى صدق الله العلي العظيم.
Brother Riaz Datu will now take us for a tour of the exhibition with Dr. Hasnain Walji, who will provide an enlightening narration of the various different exhibits on display. While we walk through these areas to experience the wonderful world of the Holy Quran, you will notice a collection of Qurans in 26 different languages, including one in Braille and one which features a beautiful scent of rose essence on its pages.
We are extremely excited to be here at the inauguration of the Quran exhibit at the Mulla Asger Memorial Library and Islamic Resource Center. I'm very pleased to have Dr. Hasnain Walji, who's been the inspiration really behind this vision. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Riyaz.
The first thing that we actually see at this exhibition is script from the first Hijrah. And it is from the first Hijrah, the Quranic script, and I'd actually like to ask Dr. Hasnain Walji to talk a little bit about the overall concept, the vision behind what we have here today.
Thank you, Riyaz, and it's great being here. This is such a wonderful occasion and opportunity. What you see again here, as you rightly mentioned, that this is the oldest known manuscript of the Quran. As far as the vision of the Quran exhibition is concerned, the Word of God needs to be transmitted to all humanity. And the vision here is, as the title suggests, that this is from the parchment to the iPad, the development of how the expression of man has put forward the Word of God through the centuries. And what we will see in this exhibition is going through the ages from the very first century of Hijrah until the modern day. Well, essentially what we have done is divided this exhibition into different eras and look at the calligraphy, the design of the Quran, and how the Quran has been depicted. As I said before, this is the word of Allah and the expression of man, and how man has expressed this in different ways in terms of how the Quran has been presented. What we see here are depictions of the ayah about the Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam, according to the Mufassirin that have been quoted here. And as our young friend said here, we actually have the handwritten manuscripts that have been salvaged from the times of the various Aimma alayhimus salam. And truly this is such an inspiration to come and look at this ayah and remind ourselves of the wilayah of Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam, or talking of the Quran being the way of the Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam. So this is really the essence and the heart of the Quran.
So as we mentioned at the entrance, this really is a timeline of Quranic script from parchment to the iPad, the oldest script that we have available from 1806 straight through to modern day. Quite interestingly, what I'd like to point out is modern day mediums for listening and watching the Quran, which include iPads, which include USB sticks, as well as sunglasses that you can wear where you actually hear audio of the Quran. It's quite interesting and remarkable to come and take a look at. I'd actually like to turn over to two more younger volunteers. The first one who has been actively involved in the IT section to tell us a little bit more about what we see here.
Well, over here we have 4 laptops pre-programmed with with an application called Zikr, where you can actually listen to the Quran recited and also search what's inside the Quran. Over here, as you mentioned, we also have the Qari pen, where you point the pen to the reciter and then to the ayah, and it recites in that certain language that you've pointed to. We also have headsets here that give the translation of the Quran in 3 different languages: Urdu, Gujarati, and English. And we also have iPads preloaded with apps that help people understand what's in the Quran.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. So another interesting part of the exhibit is the various styles of Quran that we have. And if you could tell us a little bit about that.
So here you can see a scented Quran. So if you actually smell it, it smells really good. So like when you're reciting, it's more pleasant to read the Quran. And here's the Braille Quran. So if you're blind or anything, you could move your hand through it and you could actually read it. And here we have the Kufi script Quran from the time of the 3rd Caliph Uthman. And there's Arabic and then the Uthmani text.
So on the end wall of the exhibit, we have various types of Qurans. In fact, the differentiation of them is language, and I'll have you tell us a little bit more about that.
Okay, so here displayed we have over 25 different Qurans from all around the world. They're placed in a way that they're going from east to west, language-wise. There are many different types of languages here, such as an Uzbek Quran, there's a Korean Quran, a Hindi Quran, and of course Gujarati and Urdu Qurans. Each Quran has a flag representing the country that it comes from.
The exhibition also had stunning thematic visuals on display, detailing topics such as water, astronomy, embryology, nature, animals, as well as various different foods mentioned in the Quran. I was fortunate enough to partake in the walkthrough of these exhibits and spoke with some of the guides. Let's hear what Brother Kumail Kalfan had to say on the water display. Brother Kumail Kalfan, who is volunteering as a guide here in this Quran exhibition. Kumail, just tell us what section you're in charge of today.
Well, I'm in charge of the water department, and basically I'm interested at this part because it's the essence of life, which everyone needs to value, because we use it on a day-to-day basis, while we don't really know the significance of it and the religious part to it.
Well then, I guess the second question would be, why are you taking the perspective of the Quran? Why are you studying water through this, and why do you think it's important to look at the Quran and what the Quran says about this topic?
Well, because many of the scientific facts that science are finding out today are well related to the Quran, such as the Zamzam water. We can notice that there are different types of water. Centuries ago, this Quran is intact and unique from centuries ago. And he was talking about the rainwater, the sweet water, such as the salty water and the distilled water, which science are proving it right now.
At each stage of the walkthrough, volunteers were stationed and trained to provide a brief description of the exhibit in question, allowing the spectators to truly understand the depth of the displays. Let's explore some of these stations.
This exhibit really displays how the nature and the animals which are behind me, the visualizations are behind me, how these are described in the Quran, and it's really magnificent to see how Allah's creatures are really programmed to work. Like if you see back here, where it talks about the ant, it says like the ant has no lungs, and it doesn't breathe through the lungs. It has holes throughout the body where it breathes from. So you can see how magnificent the creatures of Allah is.
So what we have here is the food in the Quran section. So as you can see, there are many different posters around showing us the different nutritional values and Quranic reference for each different fruit. For example, here it shows for grapes that they contain many important vitamins such as vitamin A, B1, B2, B6, and C. They also contain folate, which is important during pregnancy. And there are also many different Quranic references showing the importance of grapes in our daily lives.
So this is dates and childbirth in the Quran, and it just explains how dates is actually one of the highest sugar levels of all fruits, and how it helps in giving birth and how healthy it is for everyone.
Alhamdulillah, even in the Quran, we have the science evidence of astronomy. There's so much mention of the earth, the planets, the constellations, why the earth is its geode shape, what are the layers of the atmosphere. All these have been described in so much detail in the Quran that when you do decide to read and reflect on these ayahs, you realize that everything that you need to know has been written in the Quran. So it truly is a timeless guidance for us.
So embryology in the Quran. So we have learned a lot about the embryology in biology class or science class in school, but little do we know that embryology is also in the Quran.
This is the first of a series of exhibitions to be held, inshallah, at MARC, providing visitors of all faiths with a unique opportunity to appreciate the commonalities between faiths and explore the richness and wondrous heritage of one of the world's fastest growing and most talked about religions, says Dr. Hasnain Walji, who led the team of 20 who designed and delivered a world-class exhibition addressing a diverse spectrum of themes and topics on the Quran. So now let's hear from Dr. Walji as he concludes the first section of the exhibition.
As we were envisioning this exhibition and how were we going to depict the heart of the Quran and the essence of the Quran, it also became important for us to show the visitors here that beginning from the parchment up to the iPad, which is an iconic way of communication, is that in a day and age when the medium has become the message, we need to use every medium to be able to disseminate the teaching of the Quran. But we must always remember that be it the iPad or be it the parchment, the message of the Quran is universal. It is for all times. It is the completion of faith for humanity. And that is the core message that we are going to give in this exhibition. And elsewhere you will see within the exhibit says, life in the Quran, embryology in the Quran. We're looking at water in the Quran. We're looking at animals in the Quran. And this is to demonstrate that the Holy Quran is not just a book of scripture, which of course it is, but it is indeed a living book of things. It has multiplication in it, it has subtraction in it, it has ratios in it. So it has everything, all knowledge. The idea is how much of that knowledge are we able to glean is the secret of our success to life here and in the hereafter.
The Resource Center also houses a permanent exhibit on the history of Khoja Shia Ithnashari communities from its original roots in India to its current spread all around the world. It highlights aspects of cultural and societal developments of this vibrant community from over a century ago, which today still forms the heart of successful developing Khoja communities in North America and around the globe. By connecting with its heritage, visitors and community members will be able to better understand the role of faith and sacrifices in developing the 150-year-old Khoja Shia Ithnashari community.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. What we have just done is another historic milestone, that what we see here is going to be a permanent Khoja exhibit to mark the history of our community. Marking the history of the community also has lessons for us. If you have time, please browse later on. This exhibit will be open. That we have people who actually gave their lives to be on the path of Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam when we converted. Their pictures, Hirji Bhai Allah Rakhiya, Lalji Sajan, Killu Khatao, Aladdin, all these people gave their lives. This is a record of their achievements and their sacrifices. At the same time, inshallah, in the days to come, the Muballigeen of the Shia Ithnashari community, the Khoja Shia Ithnashari community, have played a major role in keeping us on that faith. Between the life of Allama Haji Naji and Marhum Mulla Asger lies the history of this community of Tabligh, and that is being portrayed here on that screen there as well as on the walls.
This now takes us to Brother Zishan Jan Muhammad, who will explain in greater detail what we can find on the Khoja wall.
This is a permanent exhibit that displays and provides information to do with the Khojas, their history, the origins, and the establishment. As we can see in the middle here, there's a map of the Khoja migration patterns, and on the side right there, there's a profile of Mulla Asger Jaffer, who was a really influential figure in the Khojas community. On our side here, there's some brief points to do with many of the important Khoja aspects. Like on the top left, it talks about why Khojas actually matter and why this history really matters to us. And to talk a little more about the Khojas, I'd like to hand this over to Dr. Hussain Walji.
Thank you, Zishan. I'm absolutely delighted that a young man like you takes interest in the history of the Khojas, and that's exactly why we have devised this permanent exhibit which traces the evolution and the history of the Khoja Shia ethnic community right from day one when Pir Sadruddin comes to a place in Sindh where our forefathers used to live until the modern times. Over here what you will see are personalities like Mullah Qadir Hussain Karbalai. We see personalities like Devji Jamal, and of course, what we have here is Marhum Mullah Asger Ali Jaffer, who really is an inspiration and has been an inspiration for the entire community in the modern days. And indeed, it is to his memory that we have dedicated this entire center, and particularly the Khoja exhibit here. And once again, thank you, Zishan, for being here, and I'd like to see many more of your generation to come and look at the evolution of the history of our community as to how we came to the school of Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam, having given so many sacrifices, because in here you will see the names of those who were killed for their faith, and that truly is the sacrifice that they gave so that you and I, Zishan, today are, alhamdulillah, Shia Ithna Muslims. Jazakallah.
Before we conclude today's program, let's hear what some prominent members of our community, as well as our guests who had come from far and wide to be a part of this wonderful event, had to say about what they experienced. So let's start off, Brother Razak, by just telling us what you thought of the whole ceremony today.
This reflects our Jamaat, Toronto Jamaat, the dedication of volunteers coming together and putting this exhibition in proper way. It indeed, it's a moment of pride and happiness for Toronto Jamaat.
I'm standing here with Brother Sadiq Jaffer from New York and Brother Mujtaba Datu from Los Angeles, California. And I'd like to start off with you, Brother Sadiq, and just tell us, how were you involved in this project and what stages did you oversee?
I was involved in the initial stage when the project was launched.
Okay, and what was your favorite part of the exhibition you saw today?
My favorite part of the exhibition today I've seen is the way that the Quran has been displayed and to see the Khoja history over here is very symbolic for me, because it kind of tells us that here it is the history, which is our heritage, is in the and I'm glad that it's over here. Okay. It actually pushes us to say that the Quran is up there and the symbolic history is over here.
Okay, now I turn to you, Brother Mujtaba. Can you please tell us, why is this project important? Why should our community, the next generations, have the chance to look and to learn about all these things on display today?
Such a project, a resource center, a heritage center, a cultural center affiliated with a large community in North America, provides us a different level of intellectual footing. All of a sudden, we are now transferred from a community to an intellectual center. We are a heritage, we are a research center, as well as a situation where not only this generation, but for generations to come, it will form the foundation for both research and preservation, our faith, our values, as well as intellectual growth.
And that's a very important point to make. And so just to finish off, from everything you've seen here today, just pinpoint one or two things that really caught your eye.
There were two parts that caught my eye. One is obviously the gloriousness, the generosity, the spirit of the people, and that is where all of these things come into play in the long run. Without that passion, without that commitment, no center, no library sustains itself. At the micro level, what I was impressed with is we could see the writings of Imam Ali on the parchment, and that's a continuation to say, yes, there is a lineage that draws us to where we are today.
So thank you very much for sharing that with us, and I'd like to thank both of you for all the time you've put into this project. Your role in the Tabligh department of this Jamaat, can you just give us a brief description of the importance of such an exhibit?
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. I'm really impressed with what I saw today, and Quran being one of the thaqal, which our Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam has said is one of the heavy weights which he has left behind us as a legacy. It's the Quran and Ahl al-Bayt. And Allah says, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, وَنُنَزِّلَ الْقُرْآنِ مَا هُوَ شِفَاءُ وَرَحْمَةُ لِلْمُؤْمِنِينَ. Meaning that Allah has revealed the Quran, which is the cure, the heart cure, and also is the mercy for the believers. So when you look at the Quran exhibition, you find that this is really appropriate, timely for the people of Toronto and around us. Secondly, it benefits us when you come to the lower part of the exhibition to know that the Khoja history, which started off approximately 150 years ago, if without these exhibits, we would never know where we came from or where we are going. And thirdly, if I look at all this, I said this completes our outreach program as far as Tabligh is concerned. So when we bring people who come outside from other faiths, we can come and show them what Quran is all about, how it's been revealed, and the author is traced to God himself, not a third party.
I encourage all of you to please visit this exhibit, found in the Mulla Asger Memorial Library and Resource Center, located in the Jaffrey Community Center of Toronto, so you can personally experience the wonderful words of Allah, expressed by man in forms found throughout history, from parchment to the iPad.
पंजतन है नाम प्यारा, अल्लाह ने खूब संवारा, मोमिन की आँख का तारा, सरमाया है ये हमारा, बेचारों का है चारा, बेयारों का है ये यारा, मेरे दिल को करेगा रोशन, पंजतन का एक नजारा, है जिनका नाम मुहम्मद, महमूद है और है अहमद, कहीं राशिद मुर्शिद अरशद, महबूब खुदा को बेहद, वो खुद और उनके अबोजद, हर एक है अंजुमनारा, मेरे दिल को करेगा रोशन, मेरे दिल को करेगा रोशन, पंजतन का एक नजारा, सरकार के दिल की राहत, वो अक्से नूर रिसालत, सरदार निसाए जन्नत, सरतापा एक बशारत, सर चश्मे रहमत व राफत, है सैयदा फातिमा ज़हरा, मेरे दिल को करेगा रोशन, पंजतन का एक नजारा, वो बिन्ते रसूले अकरम, आहवाले नबी की महरम, ममदूह ज़बान दो आलम, वो एक खातून मुअज़्ज़म, हर एक की नज़र में मुकर्रम, कहता है ये आलम सारा, میرے دل کو کرے گا روشن پنجتن کا ایک نظارہ میرے دل کو کرے گا روشن پنجتن کا ایک نظارہ اللہ نے علی کو بنایا سلطان ملک ولایت اردل میں ولی ہے سارے غالب ہے علی کی عظمت اس نام کی دیکھی شوکت جب نعرہ حیدری مارا میرے دل کو کرے گا روشن پنجتن کا ایک نظارہ یہ حسن و حسین نبی کے دو پھول ہیں دو شہزادے ہیں نور العین علی کے زہرا کے صاحبزادے رتبے میں بڑے ہی اونچے اپنا تو یہی ہے نعرہ میرے دل کو کرے گا روشن پنجتن کا ایک نظارہ سرکار
إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما أعوذ بالله من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. It is my honor to introduce the Master of Ceremonies for this evening's event. But before I do that, I'd just like to take a brief moment to reflect on the man whom we are honoring this evening. I did not have the opportunity of getting to know Marhum Mulla Asger Ali M. Jaffer very well. But I did have the opportunity of sitting down with him in a one-on-one session for an interview that we had conducted at that time. And what amazed me as a youth in my teens at that time was how profound and how forward-thinking Marhum Mulla Asger really was. As we all know, in this interview, he mentions words that are iconic and that are reflective of how we remember him today. He highlighted almost as though it was his final message to us the importance that he placed on the opportunity to serve. As we all know, he said that he considers his amals as being accepted every time he is granted a new opportunity to serve. How fitting then that his final breath was in the World Federation office at his desk as he was serving humanity and as he was serving mankind. It is my honor to call upon a man who needs no introduction, our Master of Ceremonies for tonight. Brother Akil Kareem has been an active member of the community ever since his days in Nairobi, Kenya. He's been the youth counselor of Nasimco and has been a teacher and Islamic Studies coordinator at the East and Central Madrasa. We are also very privileged when he occasionally lectures at various centers. I now hand the podium over to Brother Akil Kareem, who will officially welcome you and begin this evening's program. By Muhammad wa ali Muhammad Sallallahu
Respected scholars, distinguished guests, brothers and sisters in faith, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I would first like to take this opportunity to welcome you all at the opening of the Mulla Asger Memorial Library and Resource Center. It is indeed an honor to have all of you grace us with your presence this evening. I would also like to take this opportunity to thank Brother Shakil Nandor for the excellent work he has done in putting together the opening animation that you just saw, and the Imam of this center, Sayyid Muhammad Rizvi, for reviewing it for us. As many of you are aware, the entire project, including the cost of the interior construction, has been fully funded by a family foundation who wishes to remain anonymous. The donor family, however, has recently had a bereavement in the family, and we would therefore like to begin tonight's program with a moment of silence and a recitation of Surah Fatiha for the Marhuma and for all our loved ones who are no longer with us. Immediately upon the completion of Surah Fatiha, there will be a short recitation of some verses of the Holy Quran. May I request for the Surah Fatiha and the Surah Rahman, please.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الرحمن علم القرآن خلق الإنسان علمه البيان الشمس والقمر بحسبان والنجم والشجر يسجدان والسماء رفعها ووضع الميزان ألا تطغوا في الميزان وأقيموا الوزن بالقسط ولا تخسروا الميزان والأرض وضعها للأنام فيها فاكهة والنخل ذات الأكمام والحب ذو العصف والريحان فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان خلق الإنسان من صلصال كالفخار وخلق الجان من مارج من نار فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان رب المشرقين ورب المغربين فبأي آلاء ربكما
We have a number of distinguished guests in our midst, and we would like to take this opportunity to thank them for being here tonight. We have with us this evening Sayyid Muhammad Rizvi, the Imam of the ISIJ of Toronto, various male and female scholars and lecturers from Toronto and outside, Brother Ahmad Hassan, the President of the World Federation of Khoja Shia International Muslim Communities, Brother Ghulam Abbas Najafi, the President of Nasimco, Brother Munawwar Atansi, the President of the Council of European Jamaats, Brother Hussein Alibai and team from Karachi, Brother Aziz Jawad from Dubai. May I now request all of you to please stand up for the Canadian National Anthem.
Our home and native land, true pagan love, in all thy Son's command, with glowing hearts we see thee rise up true north, strong and free. From far and wide, O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. God keep our land, glorious and free. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee.
We're also grateful to have with us this evening the Mayor of the town of Richmond Hill, Mayor Dave Barrow, Mark Prasad, and MVP of Richmond Hill, Riza Morino. Asger Ali Mulla Muhammad Jafri, more fondly known as Mulla Asger or sometimes just as Mulla, was born in 1936 in Mombasa, Kenya. His history of service to the community lasting almost half a century has directly or indirectly touched the lives of many, whether it was through the uniting of the two Jamaats in Mombasa, the revolution in Zanzibar, the exodus from Uganda and Somalia, the building of centers of worship and learning around the world, or the various works of charity in different corners of the globe, and the list can go on. He spent almost his entire life, literally to his very last breath, in serving the community. The inscription on his tombstone is a beautiful Urdu couplet describing Mullah's lifelong service to the community. And it says, "Jab tak main jiyoon khidmat-e khalq karta rahun main, jab tak main jiyoon khidmat-e khalq karta rahun main, maut aaye to ya Rab, isi khidmat mein maroon main. For as long as I live, may I continue to serve humanity. When death comes, O Lord, let it be while I am serving." While his record of selfless service is exceptional, he was also an intellectual in his own right. From a very young age, he demonstrated not only his unquenchable thirst for knowledge, but also his passion to share this knowledge with others. During his early days in high school, he joined the debating society and quickly became known as a formidable opponent in both debates and elocution contests. He often led his school team in inter-school competitions. In addition, at this young age, he spent his spare time in the evening and on weekends offering private tuition classes for some of the weaker students at both the primary and secondary levels. During his youth, he enrolled himself in classes with private tutors to learn the Arabic and Farsi languages. He was known in his later years to be a powerful orator who could communicate with tremendous ease in English, Urdu, Gujarati, Kutchi, Swahili, Arabic, and Farsi. After he moved to Nairobi in 1969, he also began learning French, but had to give up his classes due to pressures at work and his busy travel schedule. When he moved to the United Kingdom in the early 1980s, however, he embarked on studying the German language, stating it is a very precise language, rich in literature, philosophy, and psychology. He was as gifted with a pen as he was fluent in oratory. He not only contributed to various Gujarati, English, and Urdu magazines, but also authored several books himself. There are more than a dozen titles that he has penned. Among them is his work, I Was Saddam's Prisoner. It is a compelling, vivid, and detailed account of the ordeals he faced along with his wife while detained in Iraq under Saddam's tyrannical regime. In the foreword he writes that he sat down to write about his detention in Iraq 6 months after he was released. He was advised against publishing this novella by his close friends due to a concern about his well-being. At first he acceded to this request, but then he writes in his foreword, and I quote, "And then one morning, I woke up with an inexplicable urge to join hands with the oppressed Muslims throughout the world. I decided to publish my essay and join the chorus of agony and anguish while the whack of the tyrant's whips continues unabated. Out there, in distant countries, I can see an old mother expectantly peeping out of a small window, waiting for her son to return. I can see a bride who wakes up every morning to find that her husband is not by her side. I can see the small innocent faces of children questioningly looking at their mothers to find out when father would return home with a loving smile, his hands full of small gifts. And on the other side of the corridor, I see the blindfolds, the shackles, the whips, and the blood streaming from the bare backs of the young and old Muslims. I can hear them moan and whine. With them, I join to raise the feeble cry, may Allah in His mercy help Islam as ever." As you can see, his command of the English language and the ease with which he recounts in detail the events of his heart-wrenching ordeal months after he was released is indeed remarkable. One of the other hallmarks of his personality was the breadth of his knowledge. He was a voracious reader from his young days and could discuss subjects ranging from religion to politics, philosophy to literature, and art to history. Indeed, the appropriateness of honoring his memory by naming a library and resource center after him should not be lost upon us. For despite his numerous accomplishments in life, he admittedly remained a lifelong student. From an Islamic perspective, the idea of learning being a lifelong journey is endorsed by both the Quran and Islamic traditions. The very first word of the Quran revealed to the Prophet was Iqra, read. Iqra bismi rabbika alladhi khalaq. Read in the name of thy Lord who created. In another verse of the Holy Quran, chapter 39, verse 9, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, قُلْ هَلْ يَسْتَوِ الَّذِينَ يَعْلَمُونَ وَالَّذِينَ لَا يَعْلَمُونَ. Say, are those who know and those who do not know alike? The importance of knowledge is emphasized by comparing one who knows versus one who does not. There are well-known Islamic traditions promoting the pursuit of learning. For example, the Prophet has said, seek knowledge even in China, For verily to seek knowledge is an obligation on every Muslim. In another tradition, take wisdom from whoever brings it to you, and look at that which is being said, and do not look at who is saying it. In the third tradition from the Holy Prophet, he says, on the day of resurrection, the ink of scholars will be weighed up against the blood of the martyrs, and the ink of the scholars will outweigh the blood of the martyrs. You will notice that both in the verses of the Quran and the numerous traditions, there is no gender distinction. The quest for knowledge is expected of one and all. There was so much emphasis on the importance of learning that from the very early days of Islam, Muslim rulers financially supported institutions of learning so as to make the blessings of education available to every child. The universality with which education was made available then is unparalleled to this day. From these early days of Islam, the mosque had a larger function than just being a place where congregants gathered to worship. The mosque became the hub of all activities and also played a major role in spreading both secular and religious education in the Muslim world. For example, the famous mosque in Fez, Morocco, called the Al-Qarawiyyin, was built by a young, educated woman called Fatima Al-Fihr. She had inherited a large amount of money from her father, who had been a very successful businessman. She spent her entire inheritance on building a mosque. But in addition to the mosque being used as a place of worship, it was also a center of learning from which thousands of students learned not only religious sciences such as the Quran and Islamic jurisprudence, but also secular branches of learning such as medicine, mathematics, astronomy, chemistry, and history. The university produced a number of scholars in various sciences who spread around the world as teachers. Furthermore, the Center of Learning did not discriminate by religion. Gerbert of Aurillac, famously known as Pope Sylvester II, the man credited with introducing the use of the number 0 and Arabic numerals to Europe, was a graduate of the University of Morocco. This remarkable story of perhaps the first university in the world is also a shining example of the role and contribution of women in Muslim civilization. Another example is found among the universities of Muslim Spain, particularly in those of Granada, Seville, and Cordoba, all of which evolved from mosques and were held in the highest esteem around the world for several centuries. In fact, part of the inspiration of the design of the Mulla Memorial Library and Resource Center was the architectural design of the famous mosque in Cordoba. There were numerous achievements of these centuries-old educational institutions. In the interest of time, I only wish to touch upon two. Firstly, the caliber and accomplishments of its students. Among the graduates of the University of Cordoba was a man by the name Abul Walid Muhammad ibn Ahmad ibn Rushd, better known just as Ibn Rushd. Ibn Rushd is known in European literature as Averroes and is recognized as a master in philosophy, theology, logic, psychology, medicine, astronomy, geography, mathematics, physics, celestial mechanics, just to name a few. His accomplishments were so significant that he is known to this day as the founding father of secular thought and one of the spiritual fathers of Europe. The second accomplishment of this era in history is that it promoted tolerance towards other faiths. And as a result, these centers of learning were open to all, Muslims, Christians, and Jews alike. It was an opportunity for the meeting of minds from varied backgrounds. Students from France and England traveled to sit at the feet of scholars to learn philosophy, science, and medicine. In summary, J. Wartenberg, in his book, Some Institutional Aspects of Muslim Higher Learning, writes that schools and libraries became indispensable appendages to the mosque. I submit to you, therefore, that the opening of the Asadiq Islamic School and the Mulla Asger Memorial Library and Resource Center completes the tripartite dimension of this center. My brothers and sisters in faith, we have gathered here to honor the memory of Mulla Asger, but he is undoubtedly a link in the chain of individuals who have served the community in the past and will continue to serve in the future. I will conclude therefore, with a beautiful couplet by Allama Iqbal in which he says, अफराद के हाथों में है अक़वाम की तकदीर, अफराद के हाथों में है अक़वाम की तकदीर, हर फर्द है मिल्लत के मुक़द्दर का सितारा. Thanks a lot. I would now like to take the opportunity to welcome our next speaker for the evening, Brother Razak Damani. Brother Razak Damani was the Vice President of the Ithnashri Jamaat of Toronto and the Chair of the Bathurst Technical Committee from 1999 to 2003. He is currently in his second term as the President of the ISIJ of Toronto. I'd like to welcome Brother Razak Damani.
Request all the executive members to come on the stage, please. That includes our chairlady, executive member, Sister Shagurita. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Our resident alim, Maulana Rizvi, the scholars, guests, leaders of the communities, brothers and sisters, Salaam Alaikum. First of all, I would like to thank our North American organization, NASIMCO, in the World Federation for choosing Toronto, the Jaffrey Community Center for Mulla Asger Memorial Research and Library. This resource center is going to benefit not just the members of this Jamaat, it's going to benefit all the Shiites, all the Muslims, and all the non-Muslims in Toronto and the surrounding area. We're going to market this place to our neighbors, to our brothers Christians, Jews, Hindus, Punjabis, even the atheists. We want all of them to come here, make the use of Resource Center, and let them know how beautiful Islam religion is. We're going to have authentic literature in the Resource Center, and we want each and every one to make the best use of it. President of the World Federation, Ahmed Bhai, with your permission, I would like to say a few words. It was the year 2001 when Ali Raza Rajani was the president and I was the vice president. We made the president of the World Federation at that time, Al-Hajj Dr. Hussein Bhai Walji. It is what we see the Resource Center tonight is the inspiration, is the passion of Hussein Bhai Walji. At that time, we convinced him to open a center like this, the Resource Center in Toronto. He agreed to that. And today, you can see the Resource Center. It's the commitment given to us by Brother Hussein Walji. Brothers and wives would like to come on the stage, and on behalf of the Toronto Jamaat, we have a token for you. Please come forward. President of the Welfareist, Dr. Ahmad Bhai, please come on the stage. Maulana Rizi, please come on the stage. Chairman of the COEs, please come forward. President Nasimbo, please.
In the name of Allah, the most beneficent, the most merciful, that is the bounty whereof Allah gives glad tidings to His servants, who believe and do righteous deeds. Say, no reward do I ask of you for this except the love of those near of kin. And if anyone earns any good, we shall give him an increase of good in respect thereof. For Allah is oft forgiving, most ready to appreciate the service. The Quran, Ashura, Ayat 23. This award of appreciation is presented on behalf of the ISIG of Toronto for your outstanding service and dedication. Presented to Al-Hajj Hasnain Waji, presented by Razak Damani, President ISIG of Toronto, October 24, 2009.
Thank you, Brother Razak. We would also like to welcome this evening Ms. Georgina Bensick from the Ontario Liberal Party, Abdullah Hamid, the President of the Islamic Community of the Afghans in Canada, Marka Roman from Roman Services, Dorsey Hildegard, Rehana Mustafa, Zafina Mustafa from Hesperus. Our next speaker, Brother Ghulam Abbas Nadifi, has a long history of service to the community. He's been involved in the madrasas, the ISIG of Toronto, and is currently the president of Nasimbo. May I now request Brother Ghulam Abbas Nadifi to please come up and say a few words. Brother Ghulam Abbas Nadifi.
Respected Maulana Sayyid Muhammad Rizvi, President of World Federation Dr. Ahmed Hashim, President of Toronto Jamaat Brother Razak Damani, respected scholars, distinguished guests, brothers and sisters, youths, children, Assalamu alaikum. We are gathered here today to honor a man who dedicated his life to the service and especially to the Khoja communities around the globe. A man, through his lectures, imparted vast knowledge to our global community. A man who has touched so many lives around the world. A man who will always be admired for his tenacity and his resolve to unite the global communities and create the federation known today as the World Federation. A man who was known to all of us as Mulla Asger. The most befitting tribute to such a learned man would indeed be a library, a place where knowledge and wisdom will continue to flow today, tomorrow, and for generations to come. It is indeed my honor and privilege to represent the Simcoe at this very memorable occasion, to welcome you all at the opening of the Mulla Asger Library and Resource Center. No words are really enough to describe Marhum Mulla's immense contribution to the communities around the world. I request a Surah Fatiha for Marhum Mulla and all those who have contributed to our collective knowledge. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
God's messenger is reported to have said, "Seek knowledge even unto China." China was the farthest known trading outpost from Mecca, in the heart of the Arabian Peninsula. Throughout Islamic history, Muslim men and women have journeyed to the far corners of the world in search of knowledge. These journeys were known as rehlas. In cities such as Medina, Baghdad, Cairo, Damascus, Istanbul, and Fez, Morocco, hundreds of students took knowledge from masters of the known sciences at the time. Theology, law, grammar, philosophy, poetry, music, mathematics, chemistry, biology, architecture, and the splendid art of calligraphy. Eventually, a culture of books, libraries, and academies began springing up all over the Muslim world. Soon, Muslims were teaching philosophy, logic, mathematics, even Aristotle and Plato to European students. From Iqra, the first command revealed to Prophet Muhammad, Muslims embarked on a journey to acquire knowledge, to act upon it, and to teach it to others, regardless of social class, gender, or ethnicity. One of Islam's greatest contributions to civilization is its democratization of knowledge.
Our keynote address this evening is by Dr. Hussein Walji. Dr. Walji has spent over 30 years in community service in various capacities. He has been the Honorary Secretary of the London Jamaat and President of Milton Keynes Jamaat. He has served the World Federation as the Honorary Secretary, Vice President, and President. He has been involved in the United Muslim Association of America and was the Director of Religion of the Institute of Islamic Learning in the Metroplex. He is a writer, speaker, and zakir. He has authored 28 books on nutrition and natural medicine, and his works have been translated into 6 languages. He is a contributor to the international journals on the environment and complementary medicine. Without further ado, I present to you Dr. Hussein Walji.
أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم. بسم الله Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Ulama Ikram, President of the World Federation, Dr. Ahmad Hassan, leaders of the community, our respected guests, my brothers and sisters in Iman, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Indeed, it's a pleasure and a privilege to welcome each one of you to this historic occasion, which is the opening of the Mulla Asger Memorial Library and Islamic Resource Center. I would like to quote, as I begin, a couple of verses that this humble soul penned in memory of Marhum Mulla. The fragrance of the rose will linger on. The fragrance of the rose will linger on. The petals of taqwa and adala will live ever on. The petals of taqwa and adala will live ever on. Forget we will not the name of Asger Mulla. We will go on using it on and on and on. Friends, it is the memory of the man who was a mentor for many. Today, the cream of the leadership of the Khoja Shia International Muslim community sits here in front of me. And virtually everyone that I can recall was touched in one way or another. Indeed, when I go around meeting mu'mineen, wherever they may be, not just within our community, the wider community, it is amazing to hear the tales and the stories of how this one man was able to touch so many. As has been so eloquently covered by our masters of ceremony and the other speakers, this was a unique personality. For me, to recount his story and his biography would be like a broken record that keeps playing every time that I speak in public, that inevitably, somewhere or other, there is a link to either something Marhum Mulla said or he did, and therefore I will not venture to do that, but I will invite you, and it is my great pleasure at this juncture to launch and present to the mu'mineen this book, which is being released and published today, specially for the occasion. It is called Relentless Endeavors. And this book has been penned by none other than his childhood friend and a companion for many, many years, Al-Hajj Hassan Bhai Ali Muhammad Jafar of Mombasa. The book is a wonderful account of the life and the efforts, the trials and the tribulations of Mulla Asger, penned from very close quarters, which gives a unique insight not only into the life of this man, but how his life was interwoven with the development and the evolution of this community over the span of his life. The book will be available at the Resource Center for you to purchase. We have copies of it. I invite you to look at this book. It also has what Brother Akil talked about, a copy within the book of his novelette called I Was Saddam's Prisoner as a bonus in the book. And I'd like to compliment through his son Haider, Hassan Bhai, for coming out with this so timely and a wonderful publication. It gives us more meaning and insight into the history and the development of our community. This resource center that we dedicated to this man is indeed a debt of gratitude. Hal jazaa al-ihsan illa al-ihsan. It is a debt of gratitude to him that the users of this library, those who will benefit from the words of wisdom using this library, will continue to be a source of sawab al-jariyah for marhum, and at the same time it will continue to remind us of the exemplary personality that he was, as so ably and eloquently elucidated by our Master Saradani into his prowess, whether it was writing, whether it was speaking, whether it was his silence. Those of us who sat through hours and hours of meetings of the World Federation and other community meetings could also understand that sometimes his silence told the community so much that this was the time now to turn the discussion somewhere else before he would use his stick from the podium that one would hardly ever recover from. So his silence also had that passion, not just his voice. Well, when I say that this is a debt of gratitude, it is indeed a debt of gratitude to all those muballighin, all those who are able to bring towards us the beautiful teachings of the Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam from the day of the conversion of this nascent community only 150 or less years ago. It is a tribute and a debt of gratitude to the likes of Mulla Qadir Hussain Karbalai, who as a shagird, as a student of Ayatollah Zainul Abidin Mazandarani, who was sent by Ayatollah to Mumbai to open a madrasa so that he was able to propagate the faith. And then amongst his students were Haji Naji, who was instrumental in putting forth the teachings of Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam for this community to be on the right path. And there are many between these personalities of Haji Naji and Marhum Mulla Asger. If I were to start naming them, it would take far too long. However, the resource center on its walls will eventually have the picture and the names and the biographies of each of these personalities. Be it Mullah Muhammad Jafar, Sharif Delhi, be it Wali Muhammad Darsi Sahib Salsabil, be it many others during those times, that they were the ones, and it is this heritage of this community that we would like to preserve and present to the generations to come. That is one of the many functions of this resource center that we, inshallah, will be establishing here. When we go there, you will see for yourself. The resource center is in 2 floors. The ground floor is a permanent exhibition area where, inshallah, we will have exhibitions, be it a Quran exhibition for the public at large, be it an exhibition on Islamic history or literature during the time of Muharram, be it an exhibition in the modern way to depict the event and to have our youngsters participate in a multimedia experience. We, the team here, was requested to create a small sample of the impact of multimedia. And what you see here, the little snippets that you see, is a vision of things to come. That in a society, in an age, when the medium has become the message, if you do not use a certain medium, this is the age of the iPod, this is the generation of the iPod. If you do not use a certain medium, your message is not going to be carried. Mu'mineen, this center will inshallah radiate the teachings of Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam in a manner that is in keeping with the times, so that we are able to convey that message to the next generation and to the society at large. Inshallah, that is the vision. On page 27, book that has been published specifically for the occasion of the World Federation Conference here, page 27 has a short article in terms of the vision of this center, that it is going to have a fully fledged reference library, to have a media center, to have a media production facility within the premises, and at the same time it would have links to databases around the world where academic students, media, can come and partake of the knowledge of the Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam. Mu'mineen, this is a center which has a vision, and it is a testimony to the fact that we care enough about those that we live with, the wider society within this great nation, where we care enough to ensure that we are able to share the beautiful teachings of the Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam with the society at large. That is indeed the vision of this center. To end this on a note of thanks and acknowledgement, because I would be remiss if I did not acknowledge, although I have been specifically asked not to name certain names, so I shall not name those names, but you know those people. They are hovering around here. They have been in and out here and there. But it would be remiss if I did not do that. But before I do that, I just want to share one personal anecdote of Marhum Mulla Sahib in his day-to-day simple life in the office where he used to be. As was our custom, and my dear friend Ahmad Daya will remember this well, that as was our custom that we would have the World Federation Office Bearers meeting every Wednesday at 2 o'clock without fail. And the meeting would go on until about 4 o'clock or so. That particular Wednesday, Mulla Sahib was not feeling well. He was feverish and he was not his usual self. So I said, Mulla Sahib, why can I drop you home? Can we take you home? He said, no, I have to stay in the office because at 4:30, a car is going to come and somebody is going to pick me up and I have to go 60 miles south of London in the traffic to go and recite the nikah. And I said, Mulla Sahib, this is 60 miles in the London traffic and you are feverish, you are not feeling well. Can we not ask Maulana Zafar Abbas, who was there at that time, or Maulana Kalbi Abbas Sahib, to go and recite nikah? He said, no. And I said, why are you being so stubborn, Mulla Sahib? And he smiled and he said, you don't understand. I said, explain to me. Why is it that you have to go to recite this nikah? And he said, let me explain to you. The place where I'm going to recite this nikah, I had a tiff and an argument with the grandfather of the girl whose nikah I'm being asked to perform. This is 3 generations down. And today the father of this girl has invited me to recite nikah. If I say no, they will still think that I'm bearing the grudge that I have with the grandfather. And therefore I have to go. Here is a man upon whom thousands upon thousands relied for all kinds of assistance, advice, guidance, whatever. And yet he found the time to be sensitive enough to the emotion of a man, that he would not hurt the feeling, and so that it may not be misconstrued. Mu'mineen, this was a lesson in leadership. We learned that leadership is a leadership that touches people. And the impact of that is, alhamdulillah, the mu'mineen who have come here, the mu'mineen who have gathered here, have come here because they love the memory of Muhammad. They are here to pay tribute, and he touched so many lives. And therefore, I am humbled to have been part of that small effort to be able to bring to fruition something where his memory will linger on, and we will continue to benefit from the vision of this great man in terms of educating and in terms of ensuring that we have the intellectual acumen that develops in the community. Let me just share a few words from this. He says, and I quote, these are his words that Hassan Bhai quotes. He said, "Gentlemen, you and I have a duty to perform. We need to start immediately what was started at the age of Renaissance in the European countries, when the first thing they did was to awaken the masses from deep slumber to the values of literature, art, philosophy, and science, thus producing original thinkers, most of them coming out with flying colors in their chosen fields." This was the vision of a man. In Mu'mineen, we dedicate this library resource center to that vision of the man that had, so that the generations to come produces those original thinkers, produces those intellectuals who will sit and squarely face the media, face whatever the challenges may be when it comes to convey
पंजतन है नाम प्यारा, अल्लाह ने खूब संवारा, मोमिन की आँख का तारा, सरमाया है ये हमारा, बेचारों का है चारा, बेयारों का है ये यारा, मेरे दिल को करेगा रोशन, पंजतन का एक नजारा, है जिनका नाम मुहम्मद, महमूद है और है अहमद, कहीं राशिद मुर्शिद अरशद, महबूब खुदा को बेहद, वो खुद